105.5 KLOS, Los Angeles. This is Benson. We're going to be broadcasting from all 5 of the McCartney shows. Gino Michelini, squirrel that he is hidden away someplace in the Southland, and Gino has a very special guest with him right now. Gino.
Squirrel that I am?
Yes, squirrel.
What is this squirrel stuff? I've been called a lizard before, but never a squirrel.
There you go.
Well, what they did, Joe, was they came and picked me up, and they brought me over to this studio, all blindfolded and everything.
No, it's not true.
Oh,
Not true.
actually, it was just a nice ride. And I got a chance to come over here and sit down with Paul McCartney. How are you, sir? It's so nice to meet you.
Groovy, man.
Welcome to Los Angeles again.
Thank you, my dear.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks.
I guess you're going to be having quite a Thanksgiving little affair tomorrow with a couple of chosen friends, maybe, over at the forum.
Just a wee show. A wee showy.
A bit of one, huh?
Yeah, a wee showy on the forum.
How's it feel to be back on the road again?
It's great. It's lovely. We've just been to Europe and looking forward to coming to the United States.
This is the opening night of the show, too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought you'd been someplace else before, and I got here.
And so did I.
Yeah. I walked in tonight, and Paul was on stage playing, and you were doing Carry That Weight.
Oh, yeah.
God, it's so good live. I never thought I'd hear that song live.
It takes you back, doesn't it?
Well, it just, I was overwhelmed by it. I had never thought about, there's a lot of songs that you're doing that you had never done live, too, isn't there?
Yeah, it's right. You know, it's, we chose a lot of stuff for the set, and then we played them. And when we were playing that one in rehearsal, my engineer in England said I had to go out the room. He got all choked up, you know, because it did it to him, you know. He said, and so he said, well, all right, that's got to close the show. So we just bunged them all in, you know. We do about, I think, 16 Beatle tunes. Whereas I never used to do those because I used to just think, oh, you know, it's kind of too close to the breakup of the Beatles.
Right.
And it's like we're all trying to be a rock and roll package show, which all seemed a bit kind of crummy. So we all went and did our own thing for endless years. But now so much time's gone by, you know, I think everyone's quite into playing these songs, and some of them sound fresher than the new stuff.
It sounded so good. We just walked in and boom, it hit us right in the face. Wow, let's Carry That Weight. There were any of the other songs that you've done, the old things that you hadn't done live before, that kind of blew you away when you heard them live?
Yeah, well, when we did Sgt. Pepper, when we recorded it, in '67, we just did it that one day, you know, and we kind of went and mixed it, and that was it. Stuck it up on the shelf and released it, kind of thing, you know. And we came to do it live, you know, and you realize there's all these lyrics in it about you're such a lovely audience, we'd like to take you home with us. And you go, yay, this is for me, you know. And I get to play...
I'm out here.
And I get to play electric guitar. So, you know, I mean, that's like... I started off on guitar, but I kind of got sidelined into bass, really, when our bass player left in Hamburg. So I became the bass player. And always kind of played a bit of acoustic, like on things like Blackbird and Yesterday and stuff. But I never really played any electric, just a couple of solos here and there. But the lads wouldn't let me, see. Couldn't have 3, and they wouldn't let me. So now I finally get my big break, and I can play air guitar to my heart's content.
Well, you've got a couple of good players with you, too.
Yeah, great, actually. Robbie McIntosh, who's fairly fab in his own little way. He's known as Tosh McIntyre. He was on a club. And this fellow says, ladies and gentlemen, Robbie McIntyre. And someone said, no, Tosh, he said, Tosh McIntyre. So he shall evermore be known as this.
This an obvious question. I'm sure you've been asked it 1,000 times like a lot of other ones. But did you have a hard time choosing which of the oldies you wanted to do?
No, it wasn't.
There's only a few of them.
Yeah, really, you know. No, I tell you what I did. I just sat down and thought if I was going to a show that this geezer Paul McCartney was going to be in, what would I want to hear him do, you know? And looked at it basically from like the fans' point of view, put myself in that position. And I just sat down and wrote out a list. Ended up with about 35 songs from, you know, from whenever since I've been recording, since I began recording. So some of them were like a lot of Beatles stuff, a lot of Wing stuff, a lot of new stuff. And then what we did, we just played them all in rehearsal. And some of them worked better than others. Some of them were kind of good records, but we just thought, no, it's not going to work live. But things like the Abbey Road thing suddenly came out of nowhere as not one of the big records, really. It's not like a big track that people go around whistling. But it doesn't half work in a show, he said modestly.
Powerful, very powerful.
You know, it's a great one to do.
By the way, Geezer, for a Geezer, you look pretty good.
Geezer?
Yeah, you look pretty good. Yeah,
and of course, the other person we have is Hamish Stewart.
We can't forget,
who lives in this LA town with his family. And he's hot, Hamish. You know, he used to be in the Average White Band. And so with him and Robbie on guitar, you know, we're fairly having a bit of fun up front.
Yeah, I could see there was a bit of clowning on going out there.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like we do on the end of the Abbey Road thing, we get to play the 3 guitar there's a little trade-off on 3 guitars. And of course, I don't know, it just develops when you're on the road. You start leaning on each other and falling over. And
Already? Okay.
Already, man.
Yeah, when you put the tour together, when you decided you were going to get back on, you were going to do it, what was your attitude in mind as far as, are you, like, we're going to go out and we're going to give lessons? Or are you just going to, I'm not sure what we're going to do. Did you have anything in mind as far as the kind of production you wanted to do?
No, the main thing I thought about was like, originally you get all the questions in your mind, like, oh, well, what image are we going to project and what's this going to be? But I heard someone talking just on a music program, and he just sort of said, well, it's all in the music, man. This was a guy without much image. And I thought, well, that's really where it's at for me. There's no sense me kind of going trying to sort of buckle up like Michael Jackson or somebody, and trying to do a big sort of thing like that.
Can you moonwalk?
Well, not exactly. But catch me on the right night, love.
Oh, good.
But no, not really. But you know what I mean? That's for Michael. That's for the kind of the younger guys, and that's for the guys who are into that sort of thing. I thought the whole point about me, is the music, really. It's like it's the Beatles, it's Wings, and it's now.
Yeah.
So we just took that as the attitude, and we just said, let's just see what happens when we just stand up there and play the music, just like a band. Mm-hmm. Let's try and do nearly all of it live, put a couple of samples here and there, but don't rely on all of that. So that's what it's become, really. We're just a band. We just get up there and we just play, even if we're in a little pub or we're up on a big stage. The idea is we're supposed to be able to play music, so we just go, press a button and we play.
Which brings me to the video that you opened the show with. I've been hearing all about this, so we're going to get this in America too?
It's a film. It's a 14-minute film by Richard Lester, who did Hard Day's Night and Help, and has since done like a Superman and Three Musketeers and a few other films. I just said to him originally, so one of the promoters was saying, you're going to have a support act. And I said, well, like when we're in Paris, it'd be good to have a little young French group and we can give them a break and stuff. But what happened, we ran into a lot of problems. The promoter started saying, you're sure about this thing? Because they had to set up for the first band, the support, and then they had to break them down. They had to get us on. So it got to be a bit of a production problem. So I said, well, maybe if we don't do that, maybe we could have like a film. So I talked to Dick Lester. I said, could you do a film that kind of sums it up? So it says, first of all, there's the Beatles, then there's Wings, and then there's Tonight. And he said, yeah, let me have a think about it. So he came back with something more than what I just said, but he sums up the last 25 years. But it's a grown-up film. Mm-hmm. There's not just the cute version. It's real good little film, actually. Yeah, it's quite heavy in parts. It deals with things like Vietnam, Tiananmen Square, the Chinese business, and so it's grown up, it's not from a kind of teeny bopper's point of view. So what you get is you get the guy facing down the tank in the Chinese demonstration, and that goes across these 3 screens. And in places like Paris, it's all a bit, the students' revolution, you get kind of, they cheer in this film, So it's good. It's a statement about the last 25 years. It kind of is a historical.
Which brings me to, you planning on going to Russia?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Pretty exciting time right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. The thing is, when we were going to go, it suddenly got too cold. They all said, you can't go to Russia, man. It's freezing, And so we went to Italy.
Yeah, hello. All right.
I said, well, let's go to Italy, man. That's not... No, but that is apparently the problem. You've got to kind of choose a fairly warm month if you're going to go there. It's like...
Yeah, June, July, August, and winter in Russia.
Really? Yeah. And there's just 2 weeks in July.
Yeah, it's like a Thursday, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I think it is.
A friend of mine went to London about 6 months ago, and she went into this old Russian bookshop. And there was about a 60-year-old Russian lady in there that she had one copy of a Paul McCartney Russian album.
Oh, yeah.
And she was glad to get rid of it.
Oh, yeah.
Imperialistic, and
Quite
she
right.
sold it to my friend for, I guess, 19 pounds or something, what she paid for it. And my friend brought it back to me. Of course, the next day it was on the radio here, and the phones went berserk. I mean, people are going crazy, and the response was things like, my God, he's singing his tail off. Listen to him. He sounds like he's having a ball, just raw and rough and rugged. Tell me about that session.
Well, it's weird. I mean, we started off just jamming. I was getting fed up with just making records and not really singing my tail off, because you do records, you do a vocal 10 times or something, you try and get it perfect. It's a bit boring, to tell you the truth, So I like the idea of trying to get a spontaneous feel, because as you say, it comes over on the record. So every Friday we'd go up to London from my studio, we'd go up there and get a bunch of guys together and just play. And so Chris Whitten, our drummer, who's currently with us, showed up there. And we just, when I jammed, I didn't do one of my songs. the only songs I jam from is like prehistoric from when I was about 18. You know, it's like it's Eddie Cochran, it's Little Richard, it's all that stuff. Because that's like lodged in my computer somewhere way back. I know the words to all of them. And there's 3 chords, maybe 4 on some of them. So, and so we just had such a ball doing all of that. I said, we should record this. So we went into my studio with a couple of the guys off these jams. And we just sat down for one day, and I just said, okay, we're going to do 20 Flight Rock, and the guys sort of said, how's it go? I said, well, most of them knew how it went. Yeah. But if it was one in doubt, I just said, it's in A, it kind of goes, we'll finish it like this, you know. And he said, you mean that's it? I said, yeah, and when I nod my head, that's a solo. So that was how it was done. We did 18 tracks in that day, you know, which is like unheard of these days, 18 tracks in a day. It's more like 18 days in a track. But and in the end, you know, we kind of looked at it all and thought, it's very raw, you know, but then some people said, it sounds good, don't it?
Release it in America.
Okay, I will.
50 so bucks a pop over here is not good.
I know. So I felt the Ruskies are getting capitalist at last, you know. But I think the main thing was that we were looking for a way to release it. And Reagan and Gorbachev started getting all glasnostic and all that, you know. So I thought, well, it could be a great idea to just release it in Russia, really, you know. And then if there's a big demand over here, great. But I just thought it was a good switch, you know, the Russians exporting rock and roll records to America.
Brilliant, yeah.
It's like, and I'll tell you what, the thing is, I think some of the good reviews we had is because you can't get hold of it. I hate to tell you, but I think a thing you can't have, you want. You know, and I don't know if that was an aspect to,
well, then
to
release
that.
It slowly.
We'll release it, but one copy at a time.
Let's talk about Flowers in the Dirt.
Yeah.
You went with a lot of different people on this record. You didn't have one producer to oversee like George Martin or whatever. You worked with George on a little bit of it, but you had different people. Did it just work out that way, or was that intended in the beginning?
Well, you know, because I don't have George as like a permanent producer. You know, he's kind of winding down on producing now. He just does the odd thing, but because I didn't have him and because I couldn't just go into the studio and say, here's my producer, I was really looking around for some other people. And I like Trevor Horn and Steve Lipson's work. I like some of the stuff they'd done with Frankie. I liked the Grace Jones Slave to the Rhythm and stuff. And I thought they'd done some real good stuff, so I just wanted to work with them. And they're goofballs, so we had a great time. You know, it's right Space Cadets. So, you know, we just had a laugh, and that song I believe you played the other day, Rough Ride.
Rough Ride, yeah.
Like we just knocked that off in a couple of days, you know. And then other producers, I didn't think it would be right to kind of do the whole album with them, so I looked around for some other people. I suppose, in a way, looking around for a permanent producer, which I didn't find. But, you know, it just ended up that way. But it was a good thing to do, because you worked with all these different people, so they brought really different attitudes. And Mitchell Froome, you know, from LA, I worked with him on a couple of the tracks. Milton Froome, as I call him. Hi, Milt. You're listening, babe. But it was great, really, you know, just to meet all these people and kind of see their different production techniques, and then to produce a few myself.
And then there was Elvis.
Yeah, the Costello man.
Fiery kind of guy.
Well, he's not fiery kind of guy, except maybe when he's on the radio and when he's doing stuff. You know, it's his image. Like, you know, he's one of these guys. In fact, I think there was like, we did a video, put it there. It's around at the moment, and there's a shot of him like smiling, laughing, and having a good time. He said, He said, you're going to ruin my image, man. But, you know, he's really, you know, very straightforward bloke and stuff. But he's got a very definite opinion. I think that's where people think he's fiery. Because if he hates a record, I mean, I brought in a couple of records saying, because we were going to co-produce some of this stuff, I brought in a couple of tracks. I said, what do you think of this, you know? And I played it. I said, listen to this. I think it's good sounds. Not necessarily a great song, but listen. He said, I hate everything about that record. So I was like, oh, well, stuff you. You know, I was like, oh, dear me. But, you know, he's fairly opinionated that way. But, I mean, I thought, well, you know, why not? He's allowed an opinion. You know, I don't get all uptight because he doesn't like something. So then we started bringing in Eskimo music, trying to fool him. No, I'm kidding. He brought the Eskimos in. We ended up with Romanian and Eskimo music. Very, very strange.
I like Put It There. That's talking about your dad, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's something my dad used to say. You know, you get all these expressions. Probably came over from America originally. Yeah. But he used to say, when we were kids, he used to say, put it there if it weighs a ton. You'd shake your hand, you know. And as you grow up, you these things in the back of your mind. You think, what was that he said? Put it there if it weighs a ton. And, you know, like you see some words sometimes. You go, oh, I never realized it meant that. And it was one of them. I thought, that's good. That's like he ain't heavy. He's my brother. You know, it's like
Right.
it's that statement.
You know, I do the Beatles Fest comes through LA every year. And
Never mind, as long as you got your health.
well, I've been doing all right.
Hey, man.
And I've been hosting it for the last 6 years, and I guess the word magic is the only one I can think of, because it's amazing. Thousands of people come to this thing every year, the shows and the flea markets and everything like this, and at least half of the crowd, I would say, every year is under 20 years old.
Yeah,
And they know every word to every Beatles song. They know every bit of trivia and memorabilia. We auction off, pictures of you or John or whatever, and they squeal and shout, and they were even alive whenever the Beatles had already broken up. It's
I know.
amazing.
So it must be their mums telling them something. I don't know. Do you tell it is? I tell you, the funny thing is, in the audience on some of these European things, you can't help watching the audience. You kind of see them mouthing along with the words, like you say. Well, one night, I'm looking at this chick there, and I got the words right this night. It's like, saw her standing there, I'll never dance. And I said, with another, which is right. She said, with a number. So I thought, ha, got you. And then the next minute, I was feeling all very pleased with myself. And I look over here, and there's a guy there, and I think, right, come on, I know the words better than you. Because it's like the second verse, and he sort of said, she wouldn't dance. And I was like, I wouldn't dance. And he had it right. Yeah. So it was a trade-off, They do know them better than I do half the time, but I just look at them, watch them, and if they get it right,
You're having a good time, aren't you? This is fun tour for you.
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean, like you say, there's something magic about playing these Beatle tunes. It gets a good atmosphere going. We're happy as a band too. I mean, we kind of, like I say, we're only emphasising the music, so we really don't need to think about anything else. We don't need to kind of think of what we're going to wear that night, particularly. It's fairly kind of straightforward, all that. But, the combination of that and then the new material that we're doing, which strangely enough fits in with all the Beatles stuff. I was a bit worried at first. I thought, well, we're going to be doing the Beatles stuff now. You're going to find there's maybe one guy in the crowd, let it be. You're trying to, excuse me, we're trying to do a new one now. Yeah. But funnily enough, it does fit. It seems to fit in quite well.
Come around more often.
All right, man.
Thank you so much.
Okay, see you, folks.
We appreciate you coming on the air with us.
See you, L.A.
All right.
Sure.
Tomorrow night, Paul McCartney at the Forum. Take it away, Joe.
Paul McCartney here on KLOS. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Gina Michelini. We're doing that one live for you here this afternoon because we know how screwed up traffic is around Southern California about this time of day normally. And on this, the busiest traffic night of the year, thought you might want a little insight on what's going on. And boy, Paul sure provided a bunch there. Wasn't that fun? Paul McCartney live here on KLOS.